If you've attended Wolfbeck, you know why I hesitated a bit, because today he's Mr. Julian KYULA. He's an internationally accomplished business leader. He's the founder and CEO of Edom X Group, a Delaware company that has opened offices in Houston and Kenya. Prior to that, he founded Mode Group, a fintech company spanning across over 26 countries in Africa, Asia, and the Middle East, which was acquired by Digital One in 2018. As founder and chairman of Beulah City, Julian is involved in affordable housing projects in the Kenyan housing sector. He now sits on several boards across the world with links to global leaders in various sectors. He has been recognized as the 2015 CNBC East Africa Entrepreneur of the Year, the 2012 IBM Global Entrepreneur, and in the top 40 under 40 Kenya entrepreneurs on 2 occasions. He's been featured in Forbes magazine, Bloomberg International, and the New York Times. As a sought-after speaker, Julian has graced various platforms across the world, including Oxford University, various Silicon Valley events, as well as CBOS in Singapore, and also spoken at the Global Entrepreneurship Summit in Nairobi with President Barack Obama. Bishop KYULA is a husband to Amanda KYULA, and they are the father and mother of 3 precious boys. Please join me as we welcome, in this context, the platform, Mr. Julian KYULA.
Thank you very much. Please have your seats. A very good morning to you all. Thank you. Nobody does these kind of events like Pastor Poju. I want to appreciate my brother for this amazing, amazing work he has done. I also want to just thank you for the amazing, amazing speakers prior to me. You know, it's good to finally meet a Nigerian called Joe. Because for us Kenyans, these names are so hard to pronounce. I have a pastor in my church called Pastor Ekelemu Ewamozino. It took me about 3 years to finally get that right. So to this amazing, amazing panel of speakers on this side, I can't imagine. I do quite a few talk events in Nairobi. To have 3 simultaneously going on and all these channels, I can't imagine what it takes to put that together. So to all of you at the Covenant Nation, well done. Well done. Thank you so much, Madam Funke, Mr. Mai, for those amazing insights. So much genuineness going in. I'm very torn about the direction I want to take. I have a presentation for you. It will make me look very smart. But beyond that, I want to deal with, I think I'm here to deal with something very important. So I'll play around with the presentation. I don't know which slides I'll use and which ones I won't. What I'm going to hope you then do is bear with me to make sure I can pass on the message. When she was reading the profile, yeah, we've done quite a few things, and I thank God for that journey. I've built companies from scratch. Even as late as when I was here for Wolfbeck, I went back to Kenya and started another one. I can tell you a lot about building from scratch. But I also want to deal with a few fundamental things, because I'm realizing that this is something we have to understand. So passion deals with the intense, strong feeling about a person or a thing. And I couldn't help but hear that from all the speakers today. Regarding what they do, passion is key. Money is a great thing. Money does answer a lot of things. But entrepreneurship, I heard someone say this once in a London conversation about entrepreneurship, is putting your face out every day for people to slap. That's what it feels like sometimes. So if you're going to get into entrepreneurship, there are a few things that I think are very important to have, and some are covered in my presentation. But in these few minutes we have, I think for all of us who've come to speak to you, the key thing is for us to give you a very small taste of the context of this gathering, which is building from scratch. But at the same time, I must ask pertinent questions as we go. I remember my parents telling me they went to school without shoes. And as I was listening to Madame Funke speaking, you know, she says she's constantly evolving. I heard it in Mr. Mai's conversation, the choice between career versus entrepreneurship. Questions, deep questions. Listening to Joe talking about what he had to do in Dubai, and even just now explaining to me that, you know, it's a challenge in Nigeria to necessarily get visas for Dubai at the moment. There are 4 things I want to make sure you catch. If you're going to start anything, these 4 things are crucial. It doesn't matter if you're in tech, fashion, hospitality, events, manufacturing. There are 4 solutions to wicked problems. Then those solutions to wicked problems are born by passion. Passion takes 4 things on the designer. It takes empathy, intuition, it takes imagination, and it takes idealism. These are actually things that are in God's design on anything he does. These 4 things are key. Again, I'm not going to make assumptions. Everybody here is starting up. Some of you are probably on your 10th company. Some of you are probably very successful, and some of you are just kicking off. But I believe we must trust God for a revolution that will take place in the arena of business. Why did I give the story about our parents and going to school without shoes? Because we are not. So I also wonder, has starting businesses evolved? I don't know about Nigeria. In my country, Kenya, there are too many training programs. In fact, we're tired. I mean, every week, people are being trained on how to do this, train. And by the way, you must train up a child in the way they should go. And when they are grown, they should not depart from it. So I also wonder the stages at which we are training people for things in life that they have to encounter. This generation is moving so fast. The largest company in my country is called Safaricom. About 5 years ago, they fired a group, a marketing consultancy group that got wrong a product that they were launching. And they were talking to 19-year-olds and 17-year-olds, and they realized that in tech speak, those are 2 different generations. So things are changing so fast. I wonder if we're giving sometimes advice for the days our parents were going to school without shoes to a generation that is completely shifting in terms of how they're looking at life. But some principles are the same. Some principles are the same. Now, so you build this thing, you build a great business, you build a great company. As you heard, I remember even in the previous business I had built, I had offices here in Nigeria and Abuja. I had a lovely team working for me here. We were in 28 markets. I think some of you still know that business in Airtel and Glo called Borrow Me Credit. That was my business. And you may see the phone company on the front end, but the back end, it was a complete technical and finance solution. So I used to stand on a place like this, and while talking, I'm just making money. It's a beautiful business. Why would I disrupt myself? Why would I sell such a business? I had 300 million customers across the world. I had people in Indonesia. It didn't matter what time it was. When I go to sleep, the system was working. I chose to disrupt myself, sell that business, and start another one because I saw something. Listen, you have to understand how to deal with finance. You have to understand how to deal with success. It's not just starting from scratch. Sometimes the end of a thing is better than the beginning. So I had to think thoroughly about how do I disrupt myself, because I could see disruption coming. I could see it coming. And I started looking at how, again, I've studied a bit of Nigeria. One of the things you have going for you is that you do have a very wealthy nation. I must tell you that, very wealthy nation. You also have pockets of capital here that you can take advantage of. In most of our countries, we have to deal with international funding. So I looked at how we were looking at finance, how we were looking at the evolution, what happens if we have to raise $100 million. So you start with $20,000, you start with $200, but over time it grows. But because of the speed of this generation, I found out that a lot of us are taking wrong capital. Found out that a lot of us are taking wrong money for our businesses. So as we evolve across East Africa, across different parts of the world, I started thinking about capital, where are we going to go? So I've broken my conversation into two parts. I'm going to come with the second part just now in about 6 minutes for my last 15 minutes and tell you something that began when I left Wolfbeck here in January. We must ask God to help us raise a mighty army that we can work faster by connecting and networking. I think the world has become too competitive for us to do it alone. So one of the things I think that is killing us in Africa is individualism. And I'm going to deal with that shortly. I think if we can crack individualism in this generation, a lot can change. In my country, communities such as the Somali community, the Ismaili community, we have a community called the Ismaili community. 11,000 of them, they control 12% of our economy. We have the Bohora community, 30,000 people, they own their own cities. I can't understand why a country that is 80% Christian can't seem to get together. So our biggest downfall, I believe, is individualism, even in entrepreneurship. I sat with my Nigerian friend in Kenya. He owns a restaurant. Across from us was another restaurant. So in this mall, there are certain restaurants that are there. And his restaurant, you know, it's a good restaurant. He's a Christian. His wife is Christian. We sat there. But across from us was another restaurant. I don't want to tell you the name for the fact that we're live. And the restaurant was full. On a Tuesday afternoon, completely full. Why? One of those communities I'm telling you about has made a decision that none of their businesses can fail. So why do Christian businesses fail? Why do we hustle so hard? Because everybody's on their own. And I've built enough businesses to realize, yeah, you can get to the top. Yeah, the top is lonely. Yeah, we can go through all the trainings. But ultimately, why are we failing? We're failing because everybody's on their own. I'll cheer you, you start, I wish you well. But there's no communal covenant that I am my brother's keeper. There's no communal covenant that what you begin, if it is a salon, get ready to see all these heads there. Are you understanding me? So, if you look at Dubai, since today we're referring to Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum a lot, let me say what he said. To be creative is to add something new to life as opposed to being a passive part of it. So entrepreneurship is great. We must start. But I wonder, to my friend, Madame Funke, today I've met someone called Funke. Usually in my country, it's all we hear is that clip, Funke, but I'm glad to finally meet someone. I'm sorry. As I listen to Mr. Maya, as I listen to my brother Joe, could it be that maybe our style of entrepreneurship was our parents' style? And could it be that a generation is rising that could change how that works? I really don't think I'll take you through my, can you see, I can show you, if you can show my presentation, I really had a smart presentation. You know, I don't know if they're showing it. You know, you can see things that I'd put in there for you. Just let it stay there for a minute. Let them just absorb. I had something, okay? But I feel like going a different, I really had something. See, that looks smart, right? Do you believe I prepared for you and I was not going to waste your time? But I really want to deal with this one. Our bias. And I think the greatest challenge I've had in disrupting myself is that I've had to learn, unlearn, and relearn. And I was hearing about Diageo and the opportunities, just having to completely disrupt yourself as an entrepreneur in an extremely fast-moving world requires a different kind of thinking. And I think what we have to do is to press strategically. Because two assets you have in life, time and energy, right? I mean, these master classes, one of the things we'll discuss with Pastor Pojo is we need 4 hours with you. All we can give you today is a drop of our lives and experiences. But it's not just pressing. It's pressing toward the mark. So, in experimenting in entrepreneurship is, I have to get it right. So it means I don't want to waste 20 years. Now listen, this is important. For anyone who's here who's doing business, I think they'll agree with me. To build a great business, if you're going to reach a point and say it has succeeded, you need a minimum of 7 to 10 years. That's the truth. Please, Mark Zuckerberg, notwithstanding, it takes you 7 to 10 years to build a good business. It also takes you 7 to 10 years for a business you were really hoping had promised to fail. So for every one of us, you have at least in life, depending on when you started, 2 bullets to try out a business. A good one. I'm not talking about that little experiment you're trying it. No, I'm talking about if it was starting to scale or something was starting to happen and it starts to track, you have 7 to 10 years. If you're lucky to do 2 good businesses, then you have that business begins to do something for you. So, you have to ask God for wisdom to press strategically, because it is easy to lose 10 years just like that. And in a generation that's moving so fast, 10 years is a long time to lose something. So we must ask ourselves the question, am I on my own? Can I really pull this off on my own? Which is what happened to me when I came for Wolfbeck. I'm going to give you a story. My slides are still going, so just let people see that I prepared for them. Yes, we have to be creative. Yes, we have to be courageous. Yes, I'll do this one day when I come. Yes, you have to have grit. Yes, you have to have focus. Yes, you have to move with speed. You know, I'm telling you all the good things that we tell you at meetings of this kind. Yes, we have to have information assimilation. You can't do it on your own. But I believe we're actually in another dimension. When I was building, this is one of the projects I'm doing in my country. These are 1,070 apartments. This is just one of them. My concept to my team was, if a waiter cannot afford my homes, they're too expensive. So I told them that solutions to wicked problems are born by passion. Why is that important to me? The first job I had in America, I was a waiter. I went through certain experiences that have stayed in my head. I don't think there's any restaurant I go to that a waiter will not remember me, because I make it a point to interact with them in a way that is life. So I fought hard. The business model was not making sense to many in the beginning. It took us 7 years to crack it. But solutions to wicked problems are born by passion. So I fought with the banks. I fought with my presidents, both of them. I fought with our parliamentarians. We lobbied hard. We got certain things going, not just on my own, just through the country's bills. We passed bills that started to look at affordable housing. My previous president and now our current president are very passionate about affordable housing. We have bills that changed how our finance bills are looking like as a country. Now it is possible for a first-time homeowner for us to work with banks for a mortgage that would not go beyond 9% on the Kenya shilling. Secondly, it meant that for my 1 bedrooms, my studios, which are about $23,000, and that's with a lot of engineering in our units. This is project 1, this is project 2, that you can own a home for $150 a month. Solutions. So now you can rent to own my homes and be a homeowner. Where am I going with this? I'm not trying to show you that I can build. I'm tired of having success on my own. So something started to happen. This is Edom X. I told you I was doing borrow me credit. How many of you have ever done borrow me credit here? Okay, good. So I have customers. But I didn't like the fact that, I can't talk too much about it because there's a lot of confidentiality there. But I thought about finance. So my part was to disrupt shelter, to disrupt finance, to disrupt certain things. So I went and looked at my business model for my previous business, and I went ahead and called my business Edom X. My previous business was called Mode. I didn't even have time to change the name, but I wanted to do things upside down. So I simply just reversed the name. So it has nothing to do with the biblical Edomites. It's just Edom X. Because I just said, I want to disrupt myself. Are you understanding me? And I wanted to look at finance differently. So we disrupted finance. And I went back to Kenya. I had to settle back because it takes a lot to disrupt yourself. And we went ahead and began Edom X, which I decided to disrupt it in America and also in Africa to show that it can work in an emerging market and a developed market. And we're able right now. We just started in September last year, but we built the company over the last 3 years, already over 1 million customers. And we are looking at finance with zero interest. Finance at zero interest. So people ask me, how do you make money? Solutions to wicked problems. So what I did is I went ahead and I found people like my friend Joe. I'd go to their restaurants and say, listen, if I have 1 million customers or 5 million customers or 10 million customers, and on the back end, I give them finance to come to your restaurant in Dubai, could you give me a standing discount? And they're happy to give me 10% because guess what I have? I have customers. I worked with the phone companies. I said, what if we could disrupt finance and change the way people look at finance? So I'm able to then use the criteria in the phone companies' mobile money to assess the kind of people I can give this credit to. But while doing that, it evolved into something I wasn't expecting. All of a sudden, people like Joe are willing to give me the discount, whether I'm giving the person a loan or not. So now I'm able to start thinking about a global brand, and this is 10 times the business I'd built before because I had the courage to disrupt myself. And I'm saying all this to say, then I came to Nigeria for Wolfbeck. While I was doing all this business, my previous business, I was in Qatar with some very lovely, wealthy friends. And we were sitting in a house about this big. And my friend had guests coming in all along, and he was a community leader. And because they own a very large phone company across the world, I was partnering with them. And we sat there as their guest. We had appetizer 1, 2, 3, 4. By the time the meal came, it's the first time I've ever seen food carried by 2 men with big trays like that. Anyway, I say that to emphasize a point. And these people sat me down, and I was watching as all these people were coming in. This was, I kid you not, 5 years ago. And at some point at midnight, we started eating at 6 p.m. We're still eating at midnight. At midnight, the shisha had gotten into my head and all that stuff. You know, for those of you who've never smoked shisha, secondhand smoke is dangerous. It's more dangerous than the one that they're inhaling. And I'm not a guy who takes a lot of drugs. I don't take any drugs, period. So there's a story I'd have told you, but my time is really narrowing down. I really want to make this point because this is important. So he's sitting there, and we're now winding down. We're finished. Business deal is done because some of these people, they relate a lot before they do business with you. So I asked him, I said, Sheikh, who are all these people coming into your house? There's been hundreds of people streaming in here from 6 p.m. I've seen them go that direction, humongous living room he had. And he says to me, oh, those are my people. So I said, what do you mean those are your people? He says, these are my people. They're allowed to come in here. They can come and take a shower. They can eat. They can even take a fresh whatever of clothes, because all their clothes are kind of the same, small, medium, large, and just come and change. And I'm not supposed to ask them who they are. Then he looked at me and says, but you are a priest, no? So I said, yes. Yeah, all this is in the Kitab. We learn from Abram. You don't do this in your church? I was agitated. My agitation, the seed of agitation for me started then. I realized, whether it's Qatar, Dubai, one of the things these guys have is community. And I can't understand why I can't seem to reconcile in my mind, and please forgive me because I get very emotional about it, why the most evangelized continent in the world just doesn't seem to understand that God's agenda was never to do it alone. Because if you go ahead and build your shop alone, your restaurant alone, your fashion shop alone, it doesn't matter. But when we start to think as a community, so I started disrupting my thinking. I said, fine, I've built successful houses. I started looking at, I'm going to go to another part on my slide, a book written by Price Pritchett. Price Pritchett, you should read it. It's called U Squared. He gives an analogy of a fly. He says a man comes into a shop and there's this fly and he's watching the fly on a window. And the fly is trying, it can see outside, but it can't get outside. It's using energy. It's buzzing. It's doing everything it can do. And he's just asking himself, I wish it could see the door and realize that where it's trying to go, that's the right way to go. But this is what a lot of us are doing. We're putting a lot of effort. The window is there, which means I can see outside, but I can never seem to get there. And this frustration is real. I don't think, and please tell me if you think I'm not doing justice to this conversation, Mr. My dear friend, Madame Funke and Joe, if you don't think I'm doing justice, to have this generation go through what we've gone through, I think would be wrong. I think there's a better way. I don't have to build these houses alone. So I went back to my country after this agitation started. I came for Wolfbeck. And when I was here, I was listening to the speakers. There was a lot of depth. In fact, I was very intimidated, I must be honest. After listening to Apostle Selman, Apostle Lubega, I just sat there saying, now what have I come to say to these people? Surely. Some smart, depth. But in this kingdom, every joint supplies. In this kingdom, I give mine, you give yours, right? So what we have to crack in Africa, because the most evangelized continent in the world has the highest infant mortality rates, the highest poverty rates, the highest corruption rates in the world. And there has to be a question we ask ourselves about this disconnect. How is it that we speak of this great kingdom thing, yet the disconnect in our day-to-day life is, listen, come listen to me, you go do it, I wish you well. No, there has to be better. And I feel some of us must disrupt that. So I looked at all the things that God, thank you. I looked at all the things that God has enabled me to build, and I said, I'm done building wealth alone. Something has to change. Because in my companies, I got private equity funds, I got hedge funds, but at the end of the day, I have fellow Kenyans who've taken money from private equity funds, and they're all at home right now. They've all lost their businesses. Sometimes that money is not good for your business. Just the truth. So we must create something different. My time is up. I'm going to borrow 2 minutes so that I can be invited again. Just to have this serious conversation. Because, guys, we've done it. We've built these things, and if you want to feel our highs, you can come and feel them, but there's a frustration we feel because how does it come back to the people? How does it come back to my brother and sister? How do I become my brother and sister's keeper so that I'm asked by another Arab? In my country, 11,000 people control 13% of Kenya's economy because they are a community. They buy sugar from one another. They don't allow funds to get out of their ecosystem. They help each other and they make sure that they're together. Sometimes we hardly know how you came to church. Hardly know whether you have food in your house. Listen, I am my brother's keeper. So, in looking at what we did, I came for Wolfbeck. The agitation had reached final level. I said, I'm going to go start this thing. God has shown it to me. I was so agitated when I slept in my hotel here in Nigeria. A vision came to me so clearly at about 3 a.m. in the morning. I got up, I prayed, and I went ahead and executed what it is. I went back to Kenya. I kicked off what we call the Kingdom Commonwealth. And I really believe that it has a blueprint that is required by the church. And the Kingdom Commonwealth basically enabled us to create something. I don't have the time, and I want to be disciplined. It created something. You can go look it up, kingdomcommonwealth.com. It begins to say that when I'm in Dubai, Joe's business is my business. We started looking at contributing every month to create a 20-year fund. I believe we can overtake the Black Rocks and all these other guys. It's not a competition, but the kingdom of God has the capacity to become each other's keepers. I said, instead of me building my house, and you see that fly, that frustration is real. That we're using so much energy. I can see where I want to go, but I can't seem to know the way. The second thing Price Pritchett tells you is that going up the stairs one step at a time, it's not going to cut it anymore. We have to leapfrog some things. We have to leap jump, rather, some things. It's a quantum leap. And that's what we have to do. So we have to create systems. And the whole model of try harder, I don't believe is the answer. I think we have to work smarter. And I think we have to change how things have been done. Listen, I think you can tell, for all of us as speakers, we need time. And we need a master class so that we can take you through why are we disrupting it? Why are we asking us to think different as a generation? And how do we picture that end and bring it to the beginning? Because that's really where it needs to be. So Kingdom Commonwealth started in Kenya. We're already thousands of members from Wolfbeck here. It got birthed here, and they've bought into the vision. And I've said to them, my next houses, we build them together. My next things, we do them together. Yours, we do them together. And we created a system and showed the way. If I had the time, I'd show you why it's time for us to get comfortable being uncomfortable. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll see you at the next platform. By God's grace. Thank you.